Today we're going to talk a little bit about how to create a simple podcast in FirstClass. Use your FirstClass login and ID to log into FirstClass. Have your desktop open, and I want you to open up your web publishing folder. My web publishing folder probably looks a little bit different from yours in terms of how many web pages I'm working with, but essentially all I'd like you to do is to click on the root directory at the top, highlight that. Your menu bar will now change and you have a button that says New Web Page. Click here and you have the ability to choose a number of different web pages. I'd like you to choose the podcast. Click on this and hit OK. Nothing really happens, but at the bottom of your directory of web pages, you now have something called podcast, and it's waiting for you to do something with this. Highlight it, open it up, your menu bar will change again, and you now have a couple of different tools. You have the ability to change the appearance of this particular podcast web session, and by clicking on appearance, you can select a web skin from the available ones here. For instance, I'm going to use Cosmo Nightshade and hit OK. Now you're ready to create a new episode. Click on the new episode button. A window opens up that wants you to enter in some of the vital details about your podcast episode. The required fields are title and author, but you can enter information into any of these fields. So I'm going to give my episode a title and enter my name as the author. Now I'm ready to record the episode. I'm going to hit the record episode button, and really what we're doing is creating the sound file that's going to be embedded in the podcast episode that people will subscribe to. You have a record button. I'm going to click this and I'm going to record my episode. Welcome to today's episode. Today we're learning how to create a simple podcast inside of FirstClass. Once I'm finished, I'm going to hit attach the voice recording, which drops the actual MP3 recording into my episode, and I'm going to hit save. Now you notice that the episode has appeared in the podcast directory of my web directory. I'm going to use the View in Browser button to see what this looks like inside of an internet browser. And here's what it looks like. So some of these details I can change, like the generic podcast name. But essentially your students or your listeners will be able to download this podcast in iTunes. They'll also be able to subscribe to this RSS feed if you have a number of different episodes in your podcast. So for instance, if you're using this for a class, you may have a number of different recorded episodes you want them to subscribe to. So if I open this podcast in iTunes, it downloads it for me, adds it to my iTunes library, and it's ready to be listened to. I simply open it up and play it. Welcome to today's episode. Today we're learning how to create a simple podcast inside of FirstClass. And that's all there is to it. Thanks for listening.